Agatin missing chitab Collins natinye kamangunet ne ole ichamege noi tugul negere ketesiet nebo Kass TV en betut nito bo Jumatatu nebo tarik 25 arawet ko nebo 8 kenyitab 2025 itagat missing ole tetutet neitun en inguni ko tetutet nebo Kass Mashinani ole kibendi kekushini gong logoiwek che tesetai kobitunen komoswek che terterchin chebo emet kigurenon Caroline Kiplagat. Kitaunen logoiwek che tinyegei ak Katiba Day ole kagobarasta President William Ruto tarik 27 arawetab 8 kenyini en kenyit age tugul koegu betutab Katiba Day. Nito ko kosubkei ak nekisirto biikab emoni katiba nelel en tarik 27 arawetab 8 kenyitab 2010 ako noto kibwoti betunoton bo Katiba Day asikiboiboichi kelchinoik che kikonyor emoni kobun katiba nelel eng logoiyot kobun President William Ruto ko ngandan maigu betutab kamunget betunoton bo Katiba Day anan public holiday keboibochini betunoton en emet komugul akikoito kanetisiet en biikab emet kotinygei ak katiba. Bitu nito en kasarta netetat kibwat kenyisiek 15 kong'eten kisirto katiba nelel eng tarik 27 arawani. Noton ko logoiyot netinyegei ak Katiba Day nekakobarasta President William Ruto kole tarik 27 nebo arawani ak tarik 7 nebo arawetab 8 en kenyit age tugul ko betut noton bo Katiba Day kobaten betut nito koma betut nebo kamung'et anan public holiday. Ketesetai ko nyolu kobois en kibagenge kanisa ak serikali eng yaetab boisionik asikobitu walet en emet. Niton ko kosubkei ak Apostle Francis Wanderi nebo kanisetab People's Church Kerugoya nekamwa kole magat koib boroindo netai kanisa kotoret serikali en kanabtaetab bandaptai asikonyoru kelchin biikab emet. Kong'oloni en igorta nekoboibochini kenyisiek 25 kong'ete ketou kanisa noto kosom Apostle Wanderi kandoikab dini koboru oret nenyolu kosub emoni en ng'alekab bolotet ak koamda kalyet en kibagenge asikobitu tetutik chebo bandaptai.
Na agano la amani, the covenant of love, na agano la upendo.
Kwa viongozi wa kanisa ningesema ya kwamba hakuna nchi itakuwa inaongozwa na malaika. Kwa hivyo watu wale wanatuongoza ni jukumu letu sisi watu wa kanisa tusichikane na watu wengine kulaumu kama ni serikali, bali kusimama katikati ya serikali na Mungu tukiuliza wapate maarifa na neema ya kuendelea. Maana Biblia inasema tusipoombea wale wanatuongoza sisi wenyewe hatutakuwa na amani na imani na hatutafanya kazi mzuri. Kwa hivyo sisi tusimame kama askari wakichunga ili viongozi wetu roho zao ziongozwe na Mungu na ili kama ni kuhubiri kwetu kuwe na urahisi.
And we are here to serve the community, we are here to serve our county, we are here to serve our country. That is the burden God put in our hearts, and our desire is that we can change the lives of people. Could be slowly by slowly or one by one. We are very, very concerned even about the mental health of people because God is concerned about the totality, the total warfare of mankind. And that's why when people are getting depressed, when people are getting stressed, when people are taking their own lives, that is a concern to us. And I would ask the government, I know they've been doing something, but we want more work to be done, especially in county levels. We want to see rehabs, we want to see more counselors, we want to see more organizations that can be able to talk and take care of the people. when we see people taking their own lives, when we see family members even killing one another, it's a very sad state of affair. And we should ask ourselves, is there something we can do? As churches, we should ask, is there something that we can do? So let us show the love of God, let us pray for one another and do what we can do. And God will bless us.
Na sisi pia kanisa ni watetezi. Kanisa hili letu la People's Church Ministry tumekuwa tukihusiana hata na serikali kwa mambo mengi. Hatuwezi taka kuona mahali kukiwa kuna vurugu ama kuna shida ama watu wanazozana. Kwa hivyo mahubiri yetu ni ya amani, kuombea mtu na mtu mwingine na kuombea viongozi wetu, maana kanisa ni chombo duniani cha kuguza maisha ya watu na kusimama katikati ya Mungu na wanadamu. Na kwa hivyo vile nimesema tena niseme, amani huanza na wewe na inaanza na mimi. Kwa hivyo tukianza tuguze mtu mmoja ataguza mwingine. Na kwa hivyo amani idumu nchini, na viongozi wetu nao tuwaambie tu wazidi kumuogopa Mungu. Jambo lolote wanafanya waweze kumuogopa Mwenyezi Mungu, maana ndiye ametupatia hata nchi hii.
Benguni agoi county nebo Narok kole kakomonguge alage en kandoik kobun kebeberta nebo South Rift akogochi kasubet tetutik chebo bandaptai chetesetai keborionjini en county noton nebo Narok ko mising ko kobun serikalit noton nebo Kenya Kwanza. Kondochini leader of majority en bunge nebo Senate ne kora ko senator nebo county noton nebo Kericho Aaron Cheriot komwochi bororiet noton bo Ma en county nebo Narok kole nyolu akichek kogochi kasubet serikalit noton nebo Kenya Kwanza ak mising ko leweniset netokchinigei emet noton nebo kenyitab 2027.
Hatutawaachilia hawa ndugu zetu. Lazima tutembee na nyinyi. Hii kura na uchaguzi inakuja. Hamwezi kukata kona. Unajua mara mingi mmekuwa mkituambia hapa Narok, sijui walikuwa mnatuambia maneno ya Mao. Sasa title ya Mao iliwekwa kwa mkono ya serikali ya kaunti ya Narok. Ni nyinyi sasa mnaamua vile. Sasa kama kuna sababu nyingine mseme mapema kabla siku ya kura. Ndio tuwatatulie. Hatutaki hii maneno ya kuachana na ati wakati ya kura inasemekana ilikuwa. Tafuteni excuse yote ile bado imebakia. Tumalize kabla siku ya kura. Mambo ya nyinyi kupiga kura kando na sisi, hiyo maneno hatutaki tena. Si ndio? Tupige safari moja, sababu Kenya sasa imeungana. Kenya inazungumza sauti moja. Kenya inazungumza lugha ya kusema kila Mkenya ana haki ya kupata maendeleo pahali alipo. Si mnajua yule ambaye alikuwa anatuambia tugawe Kenya ikuwe kampuni, huyo tulifukuza. Sasa hako kichakani anahangaika, anaongea maneno mingi. Hiyo pahali yako wacha akae huko. Lakini tangu aende, Kenya imeshikana, imekuwa kitu kimoja. Kila kona ya Kenya sasa itapata maendeleo vile inatakikana. Hakuna mtoto wa mgongo, kila mtoto ni watumbo sasa. Analishwa vile inatakikana. Na hiyo ndio filosofia ambayo inaendesha Kenya kwa sasa.
Leo tunaomba ya kwamba hii 27 Narok must stand to be counted kwa kura ya kupatia rais wetu Dr. William Ruto. We have to be counted this time. Simama hata sisi na nguvu tukiuliza chochote tunataka. Kama anatupatia saa hii na mnajua tu kufanya vile inatakikana 22. Hiyo ni kweli. Sasa hii 27 nataka hii hapa iwe 100 kwa 100. Ndio tusimame after 27 to demand ile vitu ambayo tunataka. Na mimi nataka kuambia nyinyi hakuna serikali nyingine tutapata. This county I've been a leader, I understand. There is no other government. Mnangoja mkiwa Masai itakuja kufanya kushinda William Ruto.
Hapa tuko wasasi wengi. Kesho kuanzia kesho na hii wiki yote tutakuwa na shughuli ya kurudisha watoto wetu shule, na tunataka kuwashukuru wasasi kwa sababu mumetunza watoto wenu. You have been good and responsible parents. Unajua kuna majukumu ya kuwarudisha shuleni, na tunataka kusema as a Kenya Kwanza government, the model of the school, the university, it is in a positive trajectory. Tulikuwa na matatizo kidogo, lakini as it is for now, tumefanyia panel beating. We can promise the country and Kenyans that the university model is working and it is in positive trajectory. Hata katika budget hii yote ya Kenya Kwanza government, the education sector has been getting the lion's share because the president is steering this country in a very positive trajectory. Na tunajua mzingi ya jamii wowote na inchi wowote iko katika ubora wa kimasomo.
Kila mtu aheshimu uongozi ulioko, kwa sababu hakuna uongozi isipokuwa iliyowekwa na Mungu, na uongozi wenye uko uliwekwa na Mungu. Na kama mlango ilikuwa inafunguliwa, si hata mlango ya uhusiano na Wamasai na uongozi wenye uko imefunguliwa. Sasa hatuwezi kuimba mambo mingi, tunasema hata mgapi.
Keistange choto ko tesetai en inguni lumdaet nebo kenyitab mungaret noton nebo 2026 anan financial year 2026-2027 nebo ministry noton nebo nenamu rabinik anan treasury. Tabanak noton ko tesetai kora en yoto lumdaet nebo neguren medium term budget preparation process ko tesetai tuyet niton en got nebo tuyoshek noton nebo KICC en yuton nebo taonitab Nairobi. Ak nguni kimache kegushingong tuyet noton ole en tai ko kakokono ngalalenyin cabinet secretary nebo treasury John Mbadi.
Principal secretary is present here today, including my three principal secretaries, Chris Kipto, Boniface Makoha, and of course Odede. The other principal secretaries present and other counting officers, Chairperson Budget and Appropriations Committee. I don't see representation from Council of Governors. I don't know whether there is any in the room. Commission on Revenue Allocation was also supposed to be represented. I am not sure whether there is representation from that commission. I know there are development partners. I salute you. The private sector representatives, the civil society representatives, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's with great honor that I stand before you today to officially launch the sector working groups, which is a pivotal step in our national budget and planning process for the fiscal year 2026-2027 and the medium term. This initiative is integral to our broader strategic framework, which is aimed at ensuring economic sustainability of economic growth, social development, and effective public service delivery. I recently issued guidelines on the preparation of the financial year 2026-2027 and the medium-term budget in accordance with Article 220 of our Constitution and Section 35E and Section 36 of the Public Finance Management Act. It is further to these guidelines that we are here today to launch the 2026-27 and medium-term budget preparation process. So, ladies and gentlemen, the financial year 2026-27 and medium-term budgets, which we are launching today, is being prepared within the context of a global economy that is facing significant challenges due to the following factors. One, rising trade barriers across the globe, financial tightening, and policy uncertainties which threaten growth prospects. Further, we are also faced with persistent risks which include trade policy escalations, cautious consumer and business behavior, intensification of geopolitical tensions, and sustained high inflation, potentially exceeding expectations. However, reversing trade restrictions early could stimulate growth and mitigate inflationary pressures. I am mentioning this because you have seen the unpredictability of the issues of tariffs between the two leading economies, which basically dictates where our economic growth would go. So on the global scene, as my peers has mentioned, the growth is expected to moderate at 3% in 2025 from 3.3% before slightly improving to 3.1% in 2026. In sub-Saharan Africa, again, that has been spoken to by my peers. I don't want to repeat. However, the growth outlook is supported by factors such as increased private consumption, ongoing public investment in infrastructure, and a gradual revival of the services sector, particularly tourism, in our economy. However, several risks could impede this growth trajectory, which include spillovers from global trade disruptions, declining external demand, volatility in commodity prices driven by geopolitical tensions, and limited fiscal capacity in many countries, which may lead to tighter financing conditions. Our economy is expected to recover in 2025. I think my peers spoke to last year's economic growth, which was lower at 4.7%. In the first quarter of this year, we have seen a rebound at 4.9%. We expect better performance later, although we had a challenge with the demonstrations and riots that took place end of June and beginning of July. But we expect a better performance in the last quarters of the year. And so our focus is to have a 5.3% economic growth, which is supported by strong agricultural and manufacturing sector. Our manufacturing sector has shown very clear signs of recovery, together even with mining sector, which underperformed last year, mining and minerals. So we are also expecting a robust service industry, macroeconomic stability, ongoing public investment, and high business confidence. And the public investment is mostly in the construction sector and the road sector as well. However, Kenya's economic outlook still faces both external and domestic risks. Further, extreme weather may negatively impact agriculture, infrastructure, and food security. So the government is monitoring these risks closely and will therefore take necessary measures to safeguard macroeconomic stability. Our recent fiscal experiences have been instructive. One, the withdrawal of the 2024 Finance Bill last year compelled us to forego additional revenue measures, prompting implementation of austerity measures that prioritize essential social sectors such as education, health, and social protection. In fact, last year was the most, I think, challenging year in the recent past, apart from the COVID years. Why? Because apart from losing revenue-raising measures which the government had factored in their plan, there were a lot of expenditure pressures that came from the health sector, where we adopted a new system of funding our healthcare program from October last year. And again, we also had a lot of challenges in the education sector. The collective bargaining agreements were, their implementation phase just began last year. So there were issues with COPET, NAT. We also had issues with the lecturer strikes. There were a lot of challenges, but I'm happy that we were able to surmount those challenges. So these measures, though challenging, reinforce the importance of financial judiciousness and resource economization in our governance framework. I therefore direct all MDS to ensure that the fiscal prudence and resource optimization we instituted are sustained and embedded in our culture of public service. So in the upcoming budget will be anchored on in the fourth medium-term plan and aligned with the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. The strategic focus remains on fostering economic growth through the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, emphasizing on inclusive development. So in this regard, our focus will still remain the 5 pillars: agricultural transformation, MSMEs, housing and settlement, healthcare, and digital infrastructure, which includes creative economy investments. For our fiscal framework, we are structuring our fiscal framework around key targets, which include GDP of 5.3%, inflation maintained at the midpoint with plus or minus 2.5%. We are also anchoring our framework on the projection that we will realize 17.2% of GDP in terms of revenue collection. The other projection is that we will be able to maintain our expenditure below 22.2%, down from 22.7%. The other assumption is that our fiscal deficit will be reduced. Remember, in 2023-24, the fiscal deficit was 4.7. But then in 2024-25, the year that ended, that rose to 5.8. It may be looked at as a negative, but I will tell you that if you consider other factors, we are 4.7%, but with a carryover of 218 billion, which is about 1.3% of GDP. If you add, that is the carryover of what we were supposed to have supported or released exchequer to, which includes county governments, 31 billion, 26 billion that was supposed to go to pensions, and there was also CDF, 13 billion, and MDAs unfunded exchequer requests of over 158 billion. If you add all that, that was 1.3% of GDP. If you added that to 4.7, you are at 6% of GDP. So in real terms, 2023-24, we should have closed by a budget deficit of 6% of GDP. I am happy to announce that the 2024-25, we closed the year with no carryovers. That the counties, we released all the exchequer requests to counties, including the arrears for 23-24. That we also released the exchequer requests for CDF, including the carryover of 13 billion. And we managed to settle all the pension requests that were processed. And we transferred exchequer requests to MDAs almost in total. So then it means that our performance in 2024-25, in my view, in terms of budget deficit, it was better than 2023-24. So in recent financial planning reforms, innovative budgeting approaches have been adopted by the government to enhance fiscal management and strategic allocation of resources. One of these is the zero-based budgeting, which this financial year, we should not have any excuse why we cannot adopt zero-based budgeting. We piloted it in the last financial year. Now this financial year, the 2026-27, we must now actualize full implementation of zero-based budgeting. 2025-26, there were excuses. Now 26-27, there will be no excuses. So MDS should note that each of the program will compete for funding on an equal basis, forcing elimination of inefficiencies, duplications, and misallocation of resources. So this time there will be competition for resources. You must justify the resources that you are requesting from your sector working groups. In recognition that many challenges transcend sector boundaries, we will promote intersectoral collaboration to develop integrated solutions. We cannot afford to have different arms of government working in silos on the same problem. MDAs are therefore required to identify and eliminate overlapping functions and propose joint programs that deliver greater impact at a lower cost. So we are not going to entertain any more overlapping functions between or among MDAs. You must identify them and eliminate them for seamless and smooth implementation of our program. We are running one government, we are not running many governments. So we must avoid working in silos. Something that I need to emphasize on is public participation. It remains a cornerstone of our fiscal policy. We are committed to fostering a participatory approach, engaging stakeholders at all levels, and ensuring their inputs influence budget decisions. Treasury has already been leading from the front, and we are even going to do better in 2026-27 in terms of engaging Kenyans in budget process and budget implementation. And therefore, MDAs, you have a responsibility to engage Kenyans. We must avoid the culture of thinking that we know what is good for Kenyans. We must allow Kenyans to participate in the budget-making process to decide where their resources should be allocated to. And so, all your requests will be subjected to that test, public participation. If you are not conducting public participation, I'm sorry, you may not get the resources that you are requesting from the National Treasury. It is essential to proactively identify and involve all key stakeholders, document their contributions, and clearly illustrate how their feedback has influenced the fiscal budget proposal. So all the proposals that you'll be making, you have a responsibility to demonstrate how the feedback that you've got from Kenyans is influencing that budget proposal. This approach will ensure transparency. It will also enforce inclusivity and accountability, thereby strengthening the integrity of the decision-making process and fostering trust among all parties involved. I strongly encourage all accounting officers and sector working groups to view this process not merely as a procedural requirement, but as a fundamental aspect of sound governance. So before I conclude, I wanted to mention a few things. Then I will come back to make my conclusion. Listening to the PS, Chris Kipto, and PS Makoha, you will realize that we still have a long way to go to realize economic stability in this country. But I must also say that we have made some very good progress, that if we work together as a country, then we will realize economic stability in this country in the shortest time that we never imagined. We only need first to love our country and believe in our country. Sometimes when I listen to people make their contributions, I listen a lot also to TV talk shows. I also read newspaper and I see people's opinions. And I respect their opinions. But I think we also need to acknowledge and accept that a lot has happened even in the past 1 year. Let me just mention a few things. You'll remember that in 2022, we had inflation rate at unimaginable percentages, 9.6%. Yesterday, I saw someone write that inflation has gone down because we rebased our economy. I remember when we rebased our economy last, it was several years back. And we haven't rebased our economy since that time. So these are likes for likes. So 9.6 has come down to 4.1. To me, clearly, that also reflects a reduction in cost of living. Because Chris gave you figures and analysis, and we have them. The cost of the basic commodities in 2023 and 2025. But even if you go back to 2022, it was even worse. So coming from 2022, end of 2022 to 2023, most of the basic commodities coming to 2025 their prices have gone down. From the basic, which is the maize flour, fuel, sugar. We have the data. Cost of living is not determined in political rallies. Cost of living will not be determined in churches. Cost of living is determined by real data collected, collated, and disseminated. And the data is there. If the cost of a 2 kilogram packet of maize flour was 218 in 2022, you cannot change it to 105. And if it is today 176 or 184, you cannot change it to 100. So these are real data. That is the cost of living. Cost of living is about cost of basic commodities. And the statistics are there. And I don't think there is anyone who can dispute that. And if you want to know that that is the reality, early 2023, when we really felt that the cost of basic commodities could not be afforded by ordinary people, we had sufurias on our heads. Today, how many people are in the streets with the sufurias on their heads? I don't see them. It means now the cost of what was being cooked by sufuria has gone down. So that is what I'm saying in a nutshell. There is another point that I want to mention. Allow me to just open the page where it is. The Kenya's economic outlook has been facing challenges mostly as a result of debt payment and debt servicing cost. That's a fact. You have been informed that now we are consuming about 48% of our ordinary revenue is going into servicing our debts in terms of interests. That is not sustainable. And we have recognized that as a risk area. However, I want to tell you that the government has also done a lot to make sure that we reduce the debt risks that was facing this country, or has been facing this country. Early last year, there was panic in our economy. The panic was that we were likely to default on paying our debt, meeting our debt obligation. There was a $2 billion Eurobond coming to maturity by June, and was supposed to be a bullet payment without any plan at all to pay it. And therefore there was a panic early in the year. The shilling lost ground, almost 165 to the dollar. But because of what the government did then, and what we have continued to do in terms of managing our liability and the debts, first, the shilling appreciated now to around 129.2 to the dollar.